Welcome back to the show. Johnny Kane here, and our guest is Cooper Schoenberg, senior at Indiana University, who regaled us a little bit before the break about what a typical week in the life of a college student is like, at least in his life. Uh, Coop, good to have you back on the show.
Good to be here once again.
Your story this week, you looked at an article about what student athletes are spending their for lack of a better term, like their allowance on. Because with NIL, and again, with the shift that now students are making, money off their name, image, and likeness, we'll just use a number. So I'm just going to use a number of, let's say, $30,000 being a median average here. Obviously, some of the high-level students are making more. Some of the lesser are making less. But let's just say it's a $30,000 that a typical student would get in a year. That's pretty good. I mean, it's pretty good income. For many student athletes, obviously for the majority of student athletes before this decision came down, you were maybe doing some odd jobs on the side or whatever. You would try to get a paid internship or whatever it is. Today's landscape is different, that now students are actually getting money directly from the university, which has shifted how we view the student athlete. What was the article you're working off of as you explored your commentary this week about that topic?
It was a great article by The Athletic, and it just really dove into specific players and what they choose to spend their NIL money on. And it really caught me by surprise. There was a lot of variety of what they were choosing. Obviously, you had like your leisure activities, you had, kind of your fancy material items. But I really liked seeing, I forget the exact player, but someone chose to spend their money paying off their parents' debt and mortgage for their house. I loved the giving back aspect of it. And a lot of others, shout out to the number one wide receiver in all of college football, Indiana's very own Elijah Surratt. Him and a couple other players chose to spend their money on cars. I believe it was of the Dodge variety. And then what I have to tip my cap to, because I know I would be doing the same, is Georgia quarterback Gunner Stockton. How can you not, in such a beautiful state, choosing to spend the majority of his money on things like your and mine favorite, golf?
Yeah.
Going to the best that old Georgia has to offer, buying some new clubs, playing the finest tracks there in the off season. But I think that was kind of a credit to what I just said about my day-to-day life, is there has to be give and take. And especially with these athletes who are working tirelessly, putting their bodies on the line, and doing all that they can to perform for their team and really for themselves to be able to get said NIL money. And that is where the give and take comes in. It's where, you're going very hard 6 days a week, practicing and training in football for that SEC matchup like Gunner Stockton is as the head quarterback for a major, major team. That one day that he has off, he wants to spend it doing what he does, and that's going down, playing a quick 18 to the buddies, taking a deep breath, smelling some fresh Georgia air, and just enjoying yourself. So that was what I loved most about reading that article.
Yeah, it's good, man. And I think it's interesting because, I think of where I am in life right now, and if I was able to have an allowance or a salary or whatever it would be, and what I would choose to spend it on today would be different from what I would choose to spend my money on when I was, a younger man. So it is interesting about, because for some of these students, this may be the end of the road when you say, okay, I'm done after college. I mean, some of these guys aren't going to go on to the pros. And so, to be able to monetize off your athletic ability in college, you say, okay, here's how much I have coming in. Are you investing it? Are you enjoying life as a college student? You say, hey, you deserve to, go play golf or go get a car, go get, pay off the house. It's fascinating to me because I just think, I don't know what I would have done, to be honest with you. I would like to think that would have been somewhat responsible. I'd like to think that I would have been. But it'll be interesting just to see, as the years go on here and, as the coffers continue to get stuffed, of how it's going to impact, the student athlete experience, for a lot of people. Okay. So if it were you, just hypothetical before we get into your story, hypothetical, let's say you got 30K I'm giving you this year. So we're going to spread it out over 12 months. Can't play golf 12 months a year, not even in the great state of Indiana or the great state of Michigan. Are you saving any? Or are you saying, you know what? Hey, this is my time to shine here. My senior year, I got 30K. Here's what I'm doing.
All right, let's be responsible. Okay.
Let's.
This is a PG program. Let's take that 30K now. Let's split it in half. All right.
Okay.
15K, you're going away. You're going into the bank. You're going investments. Boom. I'm working smart right now. Now, this other 15K, I want to devote about 10K of that to my family for all that I've put them through, to all the money I've spent on my mommy's card. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and give back a little, and that's going to make me feel a lot better, a little weight off my shoulders. Now I got 5K, and that's a lot of fire to be playing with. It is my senior year. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. Not to sound like a broken record, but shout out to Fowl Golf Course here at Indiana University. I believe it was ranked the #1 college golf course in the entire nation. So that track is going to be played a lot and paid with my NIL money and for a lot of my friends. So I'll bring 3 others. We get a nice little 2v2 scramble going. That's the fun part. Now, again, right on Kirkwood, have some fun at these newfound bars, gonna be responsible, but definitely gonna enjoy ourselves. And if I got, after all that, let's call it 2,000 lying around, we're gonna get the drip up. And somehow, some way, I'm going to go on Facebook Marketplace and I'm just going to get myself a Doom buggy. And you're going to be catching me riding around in Bloomington on my Doom buggy. Everybody's going to hear me from down the block, down the street. There Schoenberg goes again. Okay. So what the moral of the story is being responsible with half of it, paying off the rest to family. Okay. I'm a good guy. But treat ourselves. This is hard worked money. And what I want to spend it on, I should be able to spend it on just like these athletes. So we're going to have some fun with it. That's what I would do with my 30K. I'd be very surprised to see what you would do with your 30K, because I know you got after it down in Athens way back when. I know you.
We just don't have enough time on this program, or else I would love to share it with you. But I do like your take on that. And we're all going to listen to Cooper Schoenberg's commentary, working off a Scott Dochterman article from The Athletic about what various athletes in today's world are spending their name, image, and likeness money on. Have a listen.
What's going on? Cooper Schoenberg here with SportsCaster Media, and I was given the opportunity to cover an amazing article written by The Athletic by Scott Dochterman, and it talked about something unique, something I really haven't read up on. Obviously, in this current landscape of NIL, we hear about how much players are getting paid, who they're getting paid by, why they're getting paid. But I don't hear a ton about what they are spending that money they are being paid with on. And so this was a phenomenal article I read in The Athletic, and it talked about various players from various colleges and what they choose to spend their money on. Now, there was someone in particular, Jalen Husky. First off, great name. Defensive back for Maryland, and he chose to spend his money to pay off his apartment, to pay for his sister's college tuition, and then he bought himself a used car. Now, that's doing something for himself, for his family, and maybe a little pat on the back, because it read in the article that he won his family's Brother of the Year. Now, that's got to feel good. But that also makes me think there's so many times where you think athletes are going over the top, buying expensive jewelry and cars and even houses in this day and age. But of course, there are the guys that are doing it not only for themselves, but for their family and friends. And that was really unique. Now, I did a little more digging, and of course, there's a couple more material purchases. There's always going to be those blinged out, iced out jewelry, expensive, and of course, the wheels. I'm talking my very own Indiana University wide receiver, unbiasedly best wide receiver in the country, Elijah Surratt, along with Wake Forest running back Demon. First off, great name, Demon Demond Claiborne, and Miami defensive lineman Hakeem Mesidor, and they all bought themselves Dodge Chargers. Now, whether it's getting the new wheels for yourselves to look good driving into the stadium on game day, getting that iced out to smile, look pretty for the cameras walking into the stadium or arena. These players are spending it on various things. What I really found interesting most of all, because of course I thought to myself, sure, they'd be spending some money on their cars, on their clothes, on their jewelries, and of course on their families and friends, but really on the hobbies. Now, obviously, the Georgia Bulldogs have been the top dogs for as long as I can remember, along with Alabama and other powerhouses in college football. But the starting quarterback, Gunner Stockton, a beast, in my opinion, spends it on something I know. Of course, I'm 5'9". I don't got the talents to be a college player. But if I had that ability to rise up the ranks, get some of my own NIL money, I would be spending it on exactly what he spent it on, and that is golf. I thought that was very interesting. And he's down Athens, Georgia, Georgia Bulldogs. Beautiful landscape, beautiful architecture, same state that hosts the great Masters in Augusta National. So what he talked about was spending it on, maybe he'd be saving a little bit more money playing at some of the cheaper public courses. And hey, that's all me, nothing wrong with that. But now that he's come into this, newfound NIL money with his brand sponsorships and deals and this and that, he talked about getting fitted for a new set of clubs, which I know I personally need, and is going to beautiful courses all around the Georgia state. And it's kind of one of those things where they're using it almost to better themselves. Of course, it's nice to have the fun things. And I sound like a broken record, like a really nice Dodge Hellcat, like some new jewelry. And of course, the Hellcat talked about earlier with Elijah Surratt, or that was the Charger. But then ASU's star wide receiver, Jordan Dyson, spending it on a Hellcat. So there's all those nice things. But we talk about bettering themselves, and maybe they're stressed out on the week with the football game. Got to blow off some steam. Why not go play 18 holes? Bring a couple of your buddies. Don't even need to be on the football team, because that's kind of the luxury you have now with this NIL. So recapping the article, I really thought that it was super fun and unique to see how these players and why they're spending their money on the things that they are, whether it's for fun or whether it's to better themselves. Talking a lot about a home improvements, getting a sauna to sweat out all the toxins before game day, stuff like that. But it was very fun to see. It was a great read. I highly recommend and suggest that anybody listening goes out and reads it. But that's it from me. This is Cooper Schoenberg on SportsCaster.com. Give myself and my co-host, Carter Lutz, a follow on our own personal channels, and of course on Cooper and Carter live on Uncut. But once again, Scott Docterman, the man. Great article, great read. Hope you enjoyed.
You're listening to Cooper Schoenberg, SportsCaster.com contributor and senior at Indiana University. Always good to have him on the program. Always good energy and great insight into what modern-day student athletes are spending their NIL money on. When we come back, we'll talk about how NIL is impacting high school recruiting. Groves High School AD Ross Gauthier on the program right after this.